Welcome everybody to a new edition of Croatia First, the podcast of Mr. Bartulica. For me, it's very interesting and an honor to be here. My name is Jorge Gerizati, originally from Venezuela, to discuss a new topic called debanking. So thank you everybody for watching today. And thank you, sir.
Thank you, Jorge, for coming and for helping to organize tomorrow's event.
Of course. For those of you who don't know what debanking is, we have a situation in Europe in which more and more people, organizations, companies are losing their financial access, their bank accounts, without them even not knowing why or when or how this process happens. When they go to the bank and they ask the bank, why I lost my bank account, the banks don't even can tell them and why this situation happened. So with Mr. Bartulica, we are organizing an event tomorrow at the European Parliament to discuss the situation. We are bringing experts like Nick Anthony. We are bringing victims of financial exclusion, and we are having a conversation to try to bring solutions at the European level and, of course, at the Croatian level.
Yes, it's an important issue, and I want to thank you for raising this issue of debanking. It's also a burning question in the United States. I think the United States under President Trump is moving in the right direction. I saw just last week this press release by the Small Business Administration basically outlining that banks will have to provide access to everyone, and there will be no discrimination tolerated. What we see is that political activists have seized compliance departments in banks, and they're leveraging this. I think we have to realize we live in an age of mass politicization of everything in society,
yes.
And banks are not an exception. They should not be acting like this, discriminating against customers because of political or religious views. And so I feel very strongly about this. It's not something that's, to my knowledge, happening on a wide scale in Croatia. But in Europe, we know of many cases, unfortunately, and some of these people will be speaking tomorrow.
Yes, exactly. As you mentioned, we live in a period of time in which all our institutions are being politicized.
Yes.
Which is very sad, because
Yes.
that's why they're not delivering what they should do.
Yes.
So why, for example, people are so against universities these days is because they have become also political actors. Or why do people are mad against banks? Because they have become political actors. Why they are mad against series of institutions.
Courts.
Courts. For a society to flourish, every institution needs to have a very specific mandate.
Yes.
So if you have courts, they need to be independent, not arbitrary. If you have universities, they need to pursue truth, not political rhetoric. If you have means of communication, CNN, NBC, they should be delivering the news. And this kind of fragmentation or politicization of everything just makes our societies extremely convulsive and collapsing. And
Yes.
This is what I saw in Venezuela back in the day.
Yeah, I agree with that description. Before entering politics, I was teaching at a Catholic university in Zagreb. And what I described to my students there is that in the United States and in Western Europe, many of the older universities have become places of not education, but indoctrination.
Right.
You have mass abuse by professors who are basically disguised political activists, using their positions in the academic world to indoctrinate vulnerable students. And this is happening on a mass scale. They have, in a way, hijacked the universities in the United States, and they're charging lots of tuition to do this. And so it's, in a way, a disservice to young people, but also, it shows that these old, highly regarded institutions can be corrupted and politicized. And that's why I entered politics, really to try to renew confidence in the world of politics, that you can make a difference, that you can fight back. And so I'm pleased that this event will take place tomorrow. I think the experience for the United States is very valuable to hear what has happened and how the Trump administration is dealing with this. But also in Europe, these cases of journalists and other citizens who have just spoken out on different issues, they get debanked suddenly, very abruptly, without an explanation.
Yes, there is two problems within the debanking problem. One is a direct politicization of institutions, which we are already mentioning. Anything that is controversial or against the status quo has a greater percentage of being a victim of financial exclusion. That's one issue. The other one is the way regulation is being done that makes everything that is not 100% in line with the mainstream very risky for financial institutions. Mm-hmm. So nonprofits pushing for free speech, humanitarian organizations sending resources to, let's say, Venezuela, or working on conflict zones like Ukraine, they become so difficult or so risky for financial institutions because of the way regulation is being shaped. It's a regulatory issue.
Yes.
Is this mentality of over-regulating everything in Europe, which is bad for our competitiveness, and it is bad for financial inclusion.
Yes.
Because what is happening is that then you have all these sectors that, because they are risky, they don't have bank accounts. It's happening in the defense sector, it's happening in energy, it's happening with cryptocurrency, a lot of Bitcoin-related companies, and humanitarian organizations, politically exposed people.
Of course.
People that used to be members of parliament or used to be diplomats, they have a lot of difficulties opening bank accounts. So it's a problem that will continue growing if we don't do something.
Well, they tried to debank even Trump when he wasn't president. It happened to Nigel Farage in Great Britain. So if they can treat highly visible people, Farage's party is now leading the polls. So if they can act like this towards a high-profile political figure, they can crush anyone, really. And that's a lot of power that can be abused. And I see in preparing this event, I saw that the business community does not want to speak out publicly on this issue because it's so sensitive. It's difficult to find people from the business world who are willing to speak out on debanking because of the risk and how sensitive it is. So it's really become a political issue, unfortunately, and we have to tackle it. I'm looking forward to seeing your report that you've prepared. I want to thank you for that. I will do my best as a member of the Econ committee to make proposals to push this forward so we can have a lively debate on what can be done on the regulatory side.
Yes, exactly. It's a silent crisis in which you have all these people who had been victims of financial exclusion, or even if they're not financially excluded, they have constant banking problems, banking issues, accounts being frozen by periods of time, transactions being blocked, constant requirements. So it's becoming really expensive for many people. But many people don't speak out because lawyers advise against doing so. The idea is that if you speak out, if you are vocal, you become more of a compliance problem for banks. But that's the mentality that we should not accept. No. Because that's the way authoritarianism comes to life. We just need to fight for our rights.
Speaking of authoritarianism, could you say a few words about your home country of Venezuela? I've met many Croatians who have returned to Croatia from Venezuela, some before in the 90s, but also some more recently. I'm horrified by what the regime is doing there now, Maduro. But as someone who has been fighting this legacy of communism in Croatia, perhaps you could say what is happening today and how are the people coping with this, your people in Venezuela?
Yes, the situation in Venezuela, it's unprecedented how tragic it has been. Mm-hmm. For those of us who fight against communism, it's because in my case, I lived through it. And you have, of course, read it, you saw the past. But just as a few figures, right? Venezuela in the 1980s was one of the 20th richest countries in the world. It was similar to the GDP of Spain per capita, more than Greece, a bit less than the UK. This was the level of wealth of Venezuela. 2.5 times the GDP average of Latin America, so it was way more developed. Now is the poorest in the region.
The poorest country.
The poorest, similar to Haiti.
It's just terrible.
The economic collapse of Venezuela has been by over 70% of our GDP. In 10 years, is gone. This is twice as much as the Great Depression in the US. Hyperinflation, and by the way, this is the worst economic collapse in the history of any country without war. Hyperinflation for 4 years, the third longest in history after Nicaragua during the civil war, and Greece during Second World War. 4 years of hyperinflation. Hyperinflation is a term that means 1,000% inflation per year. Poverty rose in 12 years from around 30% to 80%. Extreme poverty rose to 53%.
Half the population.
Half the population. And this is not even considering that 8 million people left which is 1/3 of the country, which means that the poverty numbers will be way higher. All this in a country that has the largest proven oil reserves, that has gold, that has a history of development, very entrepreneurial people. It is really the embodiment of socialism.
I know the Croatians who immigrated there prospered, and I also would like to just remind my audience that ideas have consequences. We see in the tragic case of Venezuela how misguided ideas and corrupt politicians can impoverish a wealthy country relatively quickly. And it's quite shocking, but the people, especially at university level, don't seem to grasp how dangerous these socialist ideas still are, because many of them, also in the United States, are, tempted by this idea of a better world under socialism, and it always leads to the same result: mass poverty. It's really a tragedy, and people are miserable. And I hope that, with the moves that Trump is making, that he can undermine Maduro's power, and that the people can be liberated there.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, among the youth, there is always this sentiment of maybe socialism would work.
Yeah, yes.
And that's why we need to always communicate that it doesn't.
Yes.
Because at the same time, right now, because the way our economies are, many people are struggling, many young people. In all the polls here in the EU, the economy is the #1 issue for young people. So that's why we need to really explain them that to solve their issues, we need more markets, not less markets.
In my last campaign, I said that socialism promises heaven and delivers hell. And I think there's much evidence to prove that point. So
Exactly.
I want to thank you again for coming to Brussels, and look forward to our event. This was a special edition of Croatia First. I want to encourage my audience to subscribe to the channel to get notifications regularly, and we'll keep you informed on what's happening at the European Parliament. Thank you.